into what I was talking about. For those of you guys that are out there from the Rodman Discord or from my Twitter, I appreciate you guys. So rather than settling on into Dragon Ball Fighters to do this VOD, I decided to come on over here to Injustice, as Injustice does vaguely play a small role in what I'm wanting to do next, and ascertain from what I learned through Guilty Gear, as the Guilty Gear Strive was the initial experience for that fighting game. And since people did ask for my opinion on the subject, to have an idea on how someone who's not familiar with Guilty Gear played Guilty Gear, I can give my opinion. It's just, it's easier to state it all rather than write it all, because I write a lot. I think faster than I speak sometimes, so it's easier to just speak most times than write, because when I write a whole lot of sentences or paragraphs, it becomes difficult for me to keep up with myself, because my brain is moving faster than I can write. I never played a Guilty Gear Strive video game before this one, the Guilty Gear Strive beta that was released March, and then re-released the second beta after the patch notes in May. This made an impression in both betas thus far. I thought the Strive was really amazing. The character designs and redesigns are very cool. It encouraged me to take a look back at a couple of previous installments, mainly the Exerd Sign and I think Revelator, to take a look at what some of the characters' past art designs look like in the older video games before this existing one of the new day. The redesigns for Strive, as opposed to the old designs, looked really nice. I liked a lot of their ideology and the creativity behind it. The movement felt sluggish at times through the second beta over the first beta, and I know that's probably not just me. I'm not a combo fanatic, so the variety of combos never really interested me. It's the neutral aspect that fascinated me to continue playing and delving. That also drew me towards the characters I happened across in the journey of playing Guilty Gear Strive. The lobby system still felt cluttered, honestly highly crappy, almost shitty, and vaguely buggy in itself. The more people stand on the player versus player stations that you're supposed to be playing people on, not the online shit, but just to play people that are in your lobbies to try and meet up with friends, that stuff, it glitches your station with the person that you're at. It literally glitches your station, and so you have to disconnect, or you have to sit there and keep fiddling in order to reconnect with the same lobby. Or if you're clicking in first and other people around there, they can prioritize your click and basically take the opponent you're getting ready to fight. So if your opponent's right there, or your friend's right there on the same block aside from you, and you got this other idiot right next to you that's clocking in also, that's pressing the same button, he may or may not take the opponent instead of you, because that's how the bug works in that game, or however that glitch works that really did need to be fixed. I hope that it is fixed in the finalization process. It's not something that's a real issue, but it's a pain when it happens. Then the netcode, I don't care about that, to be honest. I'm happy that the rollback feature was there on the back burner to allot so many different competitive pools to embrace the video game on a lot of different levels all over the world, without needing to hear a lot of varied whining and bitching from a whole lot of weirdos. Mainly because I'm not trying to hear a whole mystery gets solved regarding two players that can't connect to each other after the same damn match typing that just happened, where you did connect or person connected, or just because your connections is absolute garbage from the beginning and you won't admit it until it just happens on a ping. So it's a very inviting change of pace, to say the least. So I'm thankful for that Rollback was able to make that happen against so many varied people. I'm happy for that, if nothing else. While I felt rushed towards playing more the second trip on GG Strive compared to the first time on Guilty Gear Strive, which it led to me being more uncomfortable in a sense with a lack of time to really get comfy and lab. I personally was more content in the second rendezvous because I was exposed to so much more in a short amount of time that grasped the core idea of the gameplay. This is looking like at the bigger picture of value. Because the second beta release, when they released the beta, I was not really comfortable at that time because shit just happened out of nowhere and I wasn't able to really get comfortable. The first beta, I was able to be comfortable and slowly get into what Guilty Gear Strive is. Hey, Deathblade, what's going on, man? The problem for me was trying to settle into the characters that I wanted to play and figure out what character really suited me. And that was something that had to go through trial and error through the trial process that happened on the first beta, which I believe was 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. And then the second beta was 3 days. So, in Beta 1, there was a lot less variety for me. Players settling into their main picks. Everything in the game felt really fast. All players were actively matching with the same players over and over in their circles, like you really couldn't mix it up with variety. I fought all my friends that had picked it up at the time, but I couldn't find anybody outside my friends due to random favoritism or just obliviousness. Well, that's how it felt to me at the start through those weeks. It was like a weird, understandably selfish atmosphere. Once again, thanks for the bet. Oh, not a problem. Oh, not a problem, Death. And then in the second beta, there was less time to play it and delve. There was more variety in the field. The game felt vastly slower. There's more attention to neutral over the pace and the combos. And there's more time to play different players and different fighters and different styles. And there's more people that are open to experiencing the lengths of actual diversity and teaching others how the mentality or the base mentality of Guilty Gear is done or implemented through the combo game and corner carry into pressure, which seemingly is like more of a selfless atmosphere. A part of me was bothered by that, but I wasn't surprised that it happened here in this beta. Because I'm like, okay, why do you now suddenly want to be more competitively open-minded between randoms and friendlies right as this all goes away? Rather than at the beginning. But again, it plays into that selfish aspect, because when people get what they want or whatever, then okay, fine, people are going to be selfish asses about it. Or they're just going to forget about what other people want since you got what you wanted. So sit, enjoy it. Be the kid in the candy shop, if you guys heard of that metaphor. On the other hand, the content part of me feels a bit more educated of base mechanics, as I had a lot of matches with involved players and content makers on the books to apply, some of which are likely never to be repeated again, knowing my luck through the FGC scene and through the change of eras that may be brought about considering Guilty Gear Strive. I don't know, we have to wait and see. In a base sense, while I was grinding rank, I noticed that a lot of characters felt restricted. Almost for the most of them, their approach options felt limited when compared to other characters like Chip or Milia, where they have the freedom to approach neutral, even though the neutral itself may vary. The best highlights for me, honestly, was just the people that I met. Hey Rose, what characters did you enjoy most? Characters I enjoyed most was honestly Ramlethal, Ino, Nagoryuki, and Zato. Those four really caught my attention. But to reiterate, the best highlights for me was like the people that I met, because I met two big name people that I gotta give my credit to the Agent P. At the end of the VOD, I'm also gonna leave a link to all the people that I had a collab with during the first beta and the second beta. So my props to meeting up with Blazeyeo. My props to meeting up with Shadel, the one they formerly called Hex Pro. My props to the Agent P, the real Agent P. Definitely follow him when you can. And TheDoctorBlu. And Flowkey FGC. Yeah, Flowkey. The first beta, I met Ruffelmonger through voice chat on PSN, and I met him thanks to Agent P. And then the second beta, I met and I actually went head to head with TheDoctorBlu himself. It was amazing, because I met two dudes in the FGC that are FGC fundamental giants I never thought I'd meet in my run in the FGC. So I'm really blessed. Let me put it right here for 15 minutes. Next, I'm going to go over my feelings about the characters and my opinions for them. Starting with the main three that I really chose to invest time in, which I could honestly say that I could main for as much time as I put into them. So I'm going to start with Ramlethal. That's my main choice in having picked up the game in the first place, as well as being very intrigued by her design, from the safe and not safe for work art of her that intrigued my interest to further pursue the character. And yeah, you heard me right. That's basically what drove me to want to invest time into the character, was looking at all this art. Come to find out, I actually stumbled upon a gold mine of a character. So, in order to play Ram effectively, I gotta constantly weigh out my options and decide whether or not I'm in a position where I can afford to potentially lose her swords or not before I use them. She's a convincing example of a risk-reward character. Like she has to constantly weigh the options between keeping her two swords to dominate the neutral game, or throwing them as a really convincing high damage projectile that sends you flying halfway across the screen sometimes, or gives you decent corner character that dominates in the corner, but in turn you lose access to her long-range normals and the superior neutral game. The swords return to Ramlethal after a delay, but they can also be picked up by walking or dashing over them. She actually has really insane normals that convert a lot of good damage. I think in general though, I want to say you want to keep your swords in neutral and spend them only in sparing confirms once you make it close to the corner. That way you start to have more of the current corner in your favor, and you'll be able to control space more consistently. And since your swords are right there, you'll more or less be able to keep your pressure and the space in check, since your swords are right there. But there's always exceptions to her rule of neutral. The second patch, she had a nerf, but honestly, even following her nerf to be more tame, she still dominates most of the cast in the mashing department and the neutral department easily by more than a convincing margin to the base movement style of the game design, or redesign at that point, since when they redid the stuff with the patchwork, it also felt weird. The neutral itself also felt weird. Everything honestly felt slower. Number 2 is Ino. And this is my first time understanding how this character is, because I never even heard of this character until the second part of the beta. The second beta release was when I first learned about her, or what she is, or who she is rather. And she's a pretty good aerial rushdown character that can hit off a number of really blended 50-50 mixes with her unique hover dash. She has some powerful high-low mix and cross-up options with the jumping dash technique. She has good high-mid screen and corner damage without really needing to spend meter. She has oppressive Okazeme tools if it's labbed right. I labbed them very terribly, but I have come across a couple of very convincing Ramlethals that, well, while granted mashed with a purpose, actually keep my ass on the ground because they know how to keep me down, using all of her specific tools to cover range and space. So, I'm convinced. What else was there? And then she also has she has an anti-air command throw. Yeah, she has a high air throw. Like, you jump up and you just command grab somebody. And I thought that was some good shit. The only other time I saw in a fighting game that a character had a command grab in the air was Superman and Batgirl from Injustice, the first game. Superman also in this game, in second Injustice, and Super Broly in Fighters. They have like an air command grab that anti-airs you. And the fact that it leaves a knockdown option present for you to Oki off of when it throws them towards the corner in the opposite direction of your initial input, that is strong. Because she almost always keeps an option select available to choose whether or not she wants to have her Oki. And when she gets her Oki, then she still 50-50s you. The most eye-catching trait about the character that I really liked was the lack of base movement that was replaced with a dash. And not just any dash, it's a weird incline dash. It's like a dash forward or back only, slightly back. Because her dash doesn't behave like a normal run. The ground dash puts her airborne, which allows her to perform the high-low mix-ups without having to actually jump. So she keeps a jump property. And then she controls select space just by moving and doesn't lose the property or an option doing an action in terms of trying to close large distances. That's better than what I was thinking at the time, because I didn't read that much into it until I delved further into the character. And so that led me to think, okay, I need to try and see on investing in time into this to figure out how I can use this. Which is why I wanted to try and pocket Ino right away and figure out what to do with that. Little did I know it would actually be a popular pick that a lot of people would soon invest their time into. Logically, it's a new character. Also, with cons, there's also some stuff that I didn't like about Ino. But it comes with the package, so as much as the stuff that I do love about her design, there's also some stuff that I hate about her mechanics. Because her unique ground dash does bring up difficulties in escaping some situations in some matchups, because she literally can't win neutral while controlling space carefully. When she does one, she loses the other one. And then you have characters that have high mobility options that can easily close the gap, and then her ass is out the sky. Or she just stays planted. Then her anti-air command grab, while it's nice, it's more situational than it first let on. So to me, that's some highly unreliable shit. She's got limited uses for her normals outside of close to mid-range situations. Because it's not that she has stubby normals. She doesn't really have stubby normals. But it's just that she can't truly counter poke or stagger. That sucks. That actually kind of sucks ass. Because she has fake pressure. She has fake stagger pressure. You just have to block string and then stop and back up. That's the only part about her that I don't like. I wish I had more time to delve into the character to better assess movement and Oki, but I wasn't trying to stay up till 2, 3, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning just to keep doing that for the next day, because I got work the next day. And then 3 was Nagoryuki. This one, it took me a while to properly assess this one because I was figuring this out since the end of the first beta, and I was studying Lord Knight's and Rufelmonger's videos about Nagoryuki in order to properly assess this, because the character design was a lot more technical than I had assumed. And so I'm literally sitting here trying to lab this like I was doing base Goku a long time ago, because that's the only other time I labbed a character that was this fucking technical. Hell, Nagoryuki's even more technical than base Goku and a couple other characters I've seen so far. But this was the character that I had studied most of the trio to better understand how to operate this fighter. While this character had his debut to the video game here on Strive, there's been no past record of the character style on the books. Because I've been trying to go back through past Guilty Gear games to see is there some style that's similar to this, where it's a dude that has huge buttons but has limited access to his fun play. Like, as soon as he starts destroying his opponent, then a setback happens. I haven't seen no shit on the books like this. So this is the debut of this style. There's nothing to go on. So it made labbing him more fun and engaging to cross-reference with the, 2, maybe 3 other Nagoryuki players that I was aware of. Because I wouldn't call them mains at this point. Like, if you're going back and forth but not fully playing him, I can't really say you're a main. Hell, I can't even say I'm a main, because I went back and forth between all 3 of these characters, because I haven't fully committed to Nagoryuki, because in big match situations, a lot of his, he's really good and he's really bad at the same time, and can really screw you if you don't know how to properly play him. And that's why I can't fully commit to him as much as I want to, because of his mechanic design. And I'll get into that while I'm here, because I have this all written here from my findings. Because everything I'm stating here, I'm basically gonna go over all this and then delete all my findings, since it'll be here in this VOD. Alright, so in my opinion, alright, Nagoryuki's really good in an advanced way, and he's really bad at the same time, almost borderlining trash. He's actually a highly competent low tier. He has good normals, long normals at that, excellent consistent space control and pressure. Each button does a sizable chunk of damage on its own, being able to dissipate the opponent's health just like that. He has a huge special cancel, so he has the ability of being able to cancel specials into themselves, which allows for a whole lot of monster conversions right off the bat. Setback to it is he has limited mobility, because he doesn't have a normal air dash or regular dash or a double jump feature. You can super jump though. I have been labbing that, so learning all that shit on fighters was actually highly beneficial. So if you know how to super jump, that actually gets around needing to double jump. Like, super jump install, all the pain to try and learn that shit actually pays off for a game like this, where you can just massively jump in the air and it covers a lot of options. And then you have the max blood rage, which, okay, entering that stage forces of some transformation that can be weirdly punished. It takes away access to his special moves, it rapidly drains his health over time, and it increases the damage that he gives, and it increases the damage that he takes. I love and I hate that shit so much. And so I spent time trying to just study the gauge itself, so I put myself in a lot of series of situations where I kind of lose on purpose to figure out what are the parameters of the blood rage. So each time he uses a special meter, right? A special move, the rate gauge fills. The rate that the gauge fills is increased. He's allowed to cancel special moves into each other at the cost of filling up the gauge. So when you commit to them, it increases the gauge. When you cancel them, it fills up the gauge. Connecting with his sword normals, regular normals, on hit or on block, will decrease the rate that the gauge fills up at. Nagoryuki can completely halt building the blood gauge by landing his command grab, which is something called a blood sucking universe or some shit like that. I can't remember what the name of it is. If one of you guys remember it, feel free to comment it. But once the gauge is full, he's forced into the blood rage mode maximum, and then he loses access to all of his specials while in this state. But in return, he has like a heavily buffed S and heavy S attack, as well as the ability to just use like a full range Zangetsu overdrive. Like his Zangetsu has it has a similar length like Sephiroth's Yamato. Yeah, Sephiroth's Masamune, my bad. It has a length almost like Sephiroth's Masamune, and it literally goes almost full screen. Being in Blood Rage has a heavy cost in his life bar decrease for that duration, which leaving the Blood Rage either running out the timer, which is represented by some gauge that's slowly decreasing, that's up on the top right hand corner, I believe, or he has to use Zanzetsu on block or on hit. Once you get that hit confirmed, you're automatically out of the Blood Rage mode. But you as the player, you got to keep note of how filled the blood gauge is at all times, so it requires a sense of micromanagement, as entering and exiting the state is highly unsafe on raw activation, deactivation, and it makes him definitely lose the match if it happens at an unfortunate time. And if you're not aware, then it's gonna happen right when you're gonna win. He's gonna cuck you. It's an integral that players understand how to maximize the benefits of Nagoryuki while mitigating the drawbacks of the Blood Rage setback in order to play him effectively. So it's like you gotta be in and out. Or if you play him optimally, you can just get one whole combo without really filling up one whole meter of the 3 meter maximum of the Blood Rage. And you can get a whole bunch of corner carry, and they're almost dead at the cost of you still being alive, and you're still in the driver's seat of neutral, pressure, and the life lead for that moment. On that note, Bloodsucking Universe, if that's the name of it, it drains more of the meter, and Fuyuko costs less as of the second beta compared to the first beta. There's a huge difference in Nagoryuki's design in both the betas. That's why I honestly think that when they did the patchwork, there's something else that they did with him, and I'll go into this as I go, that led to there being less Nagoryuki players in the second beta than the first one, because there were just not a lot of people that wanted to put up with the setbacks over the positives, which I can understand to some degree. His normals got buffed in the Blood Rage also in the second beta. The damage is cool, but the faster drain makes all of this shit irrelevant. It literally doesn't make a difference if the total drain is still the same. And it looked even worse, if you ask me, since you can't utilize the drain for as long as you did in the first beta, because it takes you to the first area, like where it initially stops, had you swung, or if you do swing Zangetsu and you get your hit confirmed and then you get kicked out of it. It's the same thing, but the fact that it hits at different rates, like the setback that's killing you drains your life at different speeds, that's bullshit. That's actual bullshit to the character. An observation I took between betas was that his health drain on trigger was different in terms of the triggering of the ability and the deactivation. Previously, the drain, like the drain stops the gain. Previously, it seemed like the drain and the gain were competing at the speed that seemed to fluctuate for a tolerable management for the character. From what I can tell, the command grab seemed to completely override the gain, as if it had a higher priority in his toolkit, and it takes the meter back to 0 or close to 0. I like that. So if there is some type of priority that his command grab has, so that way it saves him, I'm all for that. That gives a sense to the character, to the character's toolkit, and a redeeming quality of consistency to him. So that way it gives you a chance to want to get close. It means that you want to try and have neutral with the dude. Get close, get the command grab, reset the meter, reset your pressure, get the round, get the kill, get the round. Do that shit all over again. The second beta, almost none of that shit applied at the same timing. The command grab was fine in the first beta. I didn't test it at all in the first beta, that the command grab drain had a different consistency of it, but I tested it in the second one. Fukio, which was the command grab, that costing less, that's fine in the second beta because it cost more in the first one. That's fine that it costs less, but the pros and cons of the gain, it was pointless because it has no invincibility. It doesn't even have a projectile invincibility. You can't use it for neutral at all, even though ideally you could use it for that to be a more useful tool and a more viable tool for Nagoryuki. His drawback health drain zaps too much health fast, too fast. Like, it's almost like a bug that triggers in the character mechanic. The first beta, it drained slow to about a 25% HP bar remaining, like a fair chunk. So it still gives you a chance to make use of high damage normals and movement in barring a possible hit, while your health was still going to the same designated location where you're about to be a one hit yourself, but you can still close the gap and make your opponent a one hit, or if not, flat out kill him if you know how to optimize your combo. The second beta, it drains you straight to 25% almost suddenly. And with the sluggish movement on top of the patch, he's made slightly more of a sitting duck when you move forward or when you move back. Striking with Zanzetsu and making contact disengages this still, but it makes that shit so much harder to do that, because the longer the match goes on, the more your opponent plays cat and mouse, and you're just killing yourself at that point. His Blood Rage recovery is also way longer in the second beta patch, so you easily get punished whenever you come out of Blood Rage. When he does that animation, he can be punished on that because he's negative. By the time you have a chance to react, you're probably dead. Now that bug tells me, or that weird little visual anomaly that happens with his health, that tells me that the character was being reworked somewhere into a balancing. Somewhere to balance out his bar buildup, or Arc System was still trying to figure out what they want to do with the character mechanic. Because in-game bugs shouldn't be so bluntly obvious that it literally kills the character. Because it's his own character flaw that's literally working more against him than it's working for him, when it was designed to be working for him but limit neutral succession. My conclusion to Nagoryuki is this: Nago is functionally fine, but he lost a lot of his fun. He needs a buff to a lot more of his fun that he had in the first patch, but I feel the wrong buff or the wrong tweak could make him too strong. Like, if you're playing him optimally, then 1B and B doesn't get him to Blood Rage mode. It literally covers a decent amount of corner carry and almost half your opponent's life bar to 2-touch you. without needing to worry about a blood rage infuse. I personally would like to see his specials give less blood gauge. And if he transforms mid-combo, you should not get punished for it. I totally understand if he gets punished on block or on whiff for going into blood rage, but I don't think that should happen on hit. That's not fair. Right here. That covers all the characters. Those are all mainly the characters that I really cared about. It was just Ramlethal, Nagoryuki, and Ino. I didn't have time to write one up for Zato because I played him briefly during the first beta, but I didn't play. But he didn't catch my interest coming back around to the second one. It was more so Nagoryuki that caught my interest over Zato 1. The game of Guilty Gear itself, it varies between hurting me more than it's helping me, as opposed to learning a different level of movement through the hardships of learning another PvP scene and that game's base protocol of gameplay. It would feel like I'm literally starting over again to accomplish a similar gain in another game I could do with less frustration with early on. Like, this game gave me the bigger, Guilty Gear Strive gave me the bigger idea of neutral itself. Also, kind of something about frames. I still don't really know frames that much, but it's safe to say that I can attempt to pick up a better or improved understanding of neutral in that regard, considering neutral is the main way on how you achieve victory in the gameplay. I still don't really know how the hell to read frames consistently, especially for this game's sense. Like, to this game, it was a turn-off interacting with people on forums because it seemed to be a big thing, along with learning Dust and something called a Roman cancel or some shit. If I said that right, I don't know if that's what it actually is. Some Roman shit. I don't know what those are, but apparently it's ideally important to this element of the FGC. Granted, base movement is slow, so slow normals or slow attacks or visibly active frames can be more obvious as they appear, but newer people just somehow know what's plus and what's minus. How the fuck are you learning this or even grasping this idea? It's not in the game for you to visibly know. Like, you can't see what's plus and minus. There's no data shit. There's no numbers to interpret anything. There's no frame data. So how do people naturally know what's plus and what's minus? I don't get that shit. If it's in the final product of the game, then that's fine, I guess. Other players likely went back into older editions of Guilty Gear games like Xrd D or Xrd Sign or Revelator, I guess, to do their homework. But it bothers me a lot that I don't know what this is on this platform, and it's not explained. There's no real outline of a tutorial or anything to really give you an idea of what that is consistently. There's a tutorial that shows you how to play the game. I'm thankful for that, because the last couple of fighting games I played didn't have that. You just hop right in and you just figure shit out as you go. So I'm thankful for a tutorial. It just bothered me that I didn't know a lot about this platform, and nothing from my past FGC gaming experiences help here. None of that shit helps. Nothing from Soul Calibur helps. Nothing from Street Fighter. Nothing from Injustice here. Not even Fighters. None of that shit helps me understand the way frame data is interpreted in that video game. It's like it's its own thing. I got an idea about neutral, thankfully, but I don't have an idea about data, so that way you don't just stay mashing all the time, even though the gameplay for controller to stick feels it's just like it's a mash happy game. You just mash with a purpose on a lot of different scenarios. It's just you just have to make a lot of casually educated guesses for someone who doesn't understand how to play the game as accurately or correctly as a normal Guilty Gear goer. I didn't pre-order Strive, and I stick by that still. Like, it's just a whole other expense I need towards bills, so I don't really care about Strive that much to just go straight into it. In addition, the game sense is a lot when I try to research what all of the Guilty Gear terms are or were, so I know what its data means. Or what it is, or what terms are that people talk about in Guilty Gear that I've never heard before in Injustice or Fighters until I came here. Like, the gap of sense is far bigger than I imagined the more I fought Guilty Gear based players here on the game. I can get by just doing neutral and just tactfully mashing and challenging all the time, sure, but it only goes but so far in that game, and in that type of game, typing and how you make your approach. The enjoyment of this being my first Guilty Gear game drives me to learn the characters I love only, but the lack of actual game sense vastly hinders me going any further or matching competent players that already picked up on all that shit day one, or just make educated guesses from past Guilty Gear experiences. I personally do encourage newer players to pick it up. Like, as a newer player myself to the game, I was really taken by the game, and I can see that for a competitive goer, or for a fighting game goer, or a fighting game enthusiast, or hell, even a historian of Guilty Gear, that game looks like it has a lot of great potential to it to offer a lot for you to take a look into and to delve into, find what character works for you. I think that the pace of the video game slowing down may hinder a person's consistency towards wanting to continually play it, because it feels like you would get bored faster, or you wouldn't really know what to play that day, because you'd want to play something for however long you're playing it, then you wouldn't play them anymore and play something else. You'd just be in a character crisis, basically. Me personally, I don't know if the community is good for me to learn one thing, and then I gotta learn 2 or 3 other things amidst that. I'm done multitasking, learning stuff for a long while. It's just no fun at that point unless I'm fully committing to the game. That's another thing that gradually turned me off as I was playing it, because the commitment to the Guilty Gear game, at least that one, it costs you comfortability to other shit you're doing, or any progress you made on any other PvP, PvE games, because it's literally like a whole ass other game that's different, with a different controller layout and a different viability of game sense. So you play this game for so long, then you go to other games, and then you just stay shit on those other games for so long because you just stay wrapped up on this one game for so long. I don't like that. Like, they made the game grindable somewhat with a purpose. They improved rank, kinda. I still think rank is trash in my opinion. Like, trying to grind a Celestial is nice and all, but what do you really get out of that? But the way the game forces you to commit, that's a huge turn off for me. So rather than delve into Strive, since my window had ended long before I really ended my stream at that time, because I didn't want to keep staying up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning since I had work the next day. I wasn't going to keep staying up that late in order to try and get in more games, or try and see if I could find more games. I decided that I would absorb what I could, and then delve slowly into another platform that utilizes a similar understanding of core neutral. What those games are, I'm going to go on ahead and make a tweet about those later on tonight in my free time. And I'll clock it in here. That closes my thoughts basically about the video game for Guilty Gear Strive. I thoroughly enjoyed the beta for what it was worth. For someone who's new to the video game, take time to try and study the video game before you hop right into it. Learn the basic things of past Guilty Gear video games before hopping into that Guilty Gear video game. Just the core value things. Not everything about past Guilty Gear games is relevant to Strive anymore. And be patient, because there is a long series of learning curves in wanting to apply yourself thoroughly to the video game. That's it. That's all I have to say about Guilty Gear Strive. Damn, I feel much better. Any of you guys still out there? So I'm going to go on ahead and tag this spot right here, so that way this is the cutoff point. You guys have any thoughts or opinions in your own right for your guys' experience through Guilty Gear? So while I'm finding somebody to raid, you guys are free to voice your own opinions also from what you felt and what you experienced. And then I'll also show it in the VOD, if you guys wish to share your opinions. Top 5 for me is Ram, Soul, Giovanna, May, and Milia. Okay, I can believe that, because May basically is the neutral. Milia, I can understand that one. It's a lot of strong pressure games she's got. I think Milia, though, is going to be one of those characters who's hard to win in tournaments with. I feel that's probably about right. Because her strengths and weaknesses have a weird... They have a weird synergy. They both feed each other. So, like, if you stay labbing Milia a while, you'll be able to understand how she does her... like where the hitbox range is, so you can honestly just stay trying to punish her for closing neutral space control, but you get punished if you try to consistently ascertain neutral.